Benton on the critically acclaimed history-making medical drama ER. Educated at Juilliard and NYU's School of the Arts, his credits range from Broadway to film roles opposite Eddie Murphy in Coming to America and Robin Williams in 1 Hour Photo. La Salle has maintained a prolific acting career while at the same time working steadily as a director, taking the helm for HBO and Showtime, in addition to episodics such as Law and Order, CSI New York, and Under the Dome, to name a few. 2013 marked the beginning of the third element of his multifaceted career with the publication of his first novel, the highly praised, page-turning thriller, Laws of Depravity, which was followed by Laws of Wrath. Everybody, let's welcome Eriq La Salle.
I never set out just to write a book. I set out to create a franchise. I wanted something that I've always advocated was Black ownership. I feel that, we don't own enough, and we can be, great team members, but very few of us are owners. And so I wanted to create not just a single book, but I wanted to create a series of books that would then turn into a franchise for television and film. So that's what this is. This journey is for me. Just creating. So originally I was going to do a trilogy, and then as I started getting more and more into the books, I decided that the goal now is to write 5 books. So I am currently, the second book, Laws of Wrath, just came out in June. And I'm currently writing the 3rd installment. And so again, it really is, if you look at what J.K. Rowling has done with Harry Potter, and if you look at where she came from, this was a woman that was on welfare and ultimately went on to create the most successful franchise in history. The Harry Potter franchise is a multi-billion-dollar franchise created by a woman that was a single mother that was on welfare. And I always like to study those kind of stories because they're very inspirational. And ultimately, what I'm trying to do is create a franchise, a different type of franchise. I think right now the closest person that we really have to being a franchise owner is Tyler Perry. And I think that, there, unfortunately, when we as African Americans, when we do something, we sort of get the burden of having to satisfy an entire race. And but if you look at the white model, they get to do many different things. So you'll have some of them excel in the comedy world, some will excel in the romantic comedy world, some will excel in the horror world. So there's so many things that's open, but we are very hard on each other. And so there are not that many African Americans in the thriller genre when it comes to writing. So that's another thing that's important. And us having a presence in different genres and us, basically being more well-rounded and not pigeonholed. I think a good story is a good story. And I think we have to get out of the mindset of saying that this is a good Black story. Because when we read books or we go to movies, we don't say, oh, that's a good white book. That's a good white movie. We say it's a good movie, we say it's a good book. Interestingly enough, my demographics, for fans is very diverse. Last weekend I did 2 book clubs. I did one book club on Saturday and one book club on Sunday. the book club on Saturday was middle-aged white women who loved the book. I did a book club on Sunday, middle-aged black women who loved the book. And you know, the other thing that that I'm enjoying is, you know, I love when people say, well, I'm not a thriller reader normally, but I like your books because I fell in love with your characters. And the experience of being an actor, the experience of being a producer and a director, it's knowing how to create interesting characters, creating characters that people care about, that people are invested in. They don't always have to be characters that do everything right, but they are characters that the audiences and the readers are allowed to get invested in. And so that's, I think, one of the things that pulls fans to the books, whether they are fans of this genre or not. Some people, oh my God, that's too scary for me, or that's too edgy for me. But when you really sort of get invested into the characters, you want to go on a journey with them. You really want to go on a journey with them. You want them to win. You want them to of course live. You know, you want the good guys to get the bad guys. And like I said, it's a genre for us that we don't have a great presence in, and it's something that I really wanted to you know, explore, and it's sort of a natural thing for me because a few years ago, actually several years ago, I produced and starred in a television movie based on a novel, based on a series by an author by the name of John Sanford. And John Sanford is a New York Times best-selling author. He has a series called the Prey series, and his main character is this cop by the name of Lucas Davenport. And so some producers came to me and said, hey, we have the rights, we'd like for you to star in it, you can produce it with us. And so I jumped at the opportunity. And here was a character that was written white, and it was an opportunity for an African American to play the role, and we never said anything about race, because it was about story. It really was about story. And so that was the thing that sort of, that's when the bug sort of was planted. And in following that, I love the realness of drama. I think a lot of times, certain things, they're a little, I find them a little corny, I find them a little unrealistic, but I think if you can really get into a strong drama, it's one of those things that makes you feel that you're there, that you're going through this journey. And so that was definitely the appeal for me. So I started. You know, the other thing that's interesting is when we take our quote-unquote failures and turn them into victories. 3.5 years ago, I attempted to write my first novel. It was a love story. It was a dramatic love story of two people who were both broken, and for various reasons. And they would meet in this park every day. They just came upon each other one day and started a conversation and slowly developed this relationship. And they were, they fell madly in love in a short period of time. The woman was back home. She was living in the States, but she went back to Canada. She was visiting her mother because her father had died, and her father used to abuse her. And the mother knew about it. So she had a lot of hate in her. She had a lot of anger and hurt and pain. She felt betrayed by her mother, and she hated her father, but she went back for his funeral. And through the course of falling in love with this man, she started letting go of some of that. So at the end of the book, she goes to his grave, and she's finally able to say all the things she needs to say to let go, to release. So she's says all of these amazing things to him. She gets it out. It's very emotional. As she turns around, she looks at one of the tombstones behind his, and it's her lover's name on the tombstone. And she discovers that basically her lover was a ghost. And so it was an interesting. I thought it was interesting. Failed miserably. failed miserably. I had friends that wouldn't call me back after me. I had people that you give the book to get their opinion, and they act like you never gave them the book. So when you talk to them, you call them up, you're like, hey, how you doing? They're like, hey man, let's talk about football. And you're like, I'm not calling to talk about football, I want to talk about my book. And so they would, so the book failed miserably. So I tucked it away, and a few months later, I read an article about how all of, and I don't know if all of you, many of you know this, but all of Jesus' disciples were brutally murdered. And there weren't just 12. Jesus used to actually hang with like 30. They're called the lesser, and there's the lesser and the greater apostles. So some of them were hanged, crucified upside down, flayed, dragged through the streets. They died really horrible deaths, all except for one, which was John. And John was put into a vat of boiling oil and somehow survived, and then he was banished to the Greek island of Patmos. And I thought that was a really interesting, I didn't know about it, and then I come to find out a lot of other people didn't know. So, but I thought that was a really interesting thing. So I thought about it for a month, and I came up with the idea of creating a modern day serial killer who was killing fallen priests the same way that the apostles were killed. And he comes out every 10 years. He kills 10 clergymen from different denominations in the same manner, and then he disappears for 10 years. So he's been killing for 30 years. So I thought that was a great place to start, and that was this book. That was Laws of Depravity, the first book. And so at first I created the crimes, then I created the bad guy, then I created the protagonists. And the protagonists were an African-American detective by the name of V. Freeman, who used to be an NFL player. And he's partnered with an Italian-Irish cop by the name of Quincy Cavanaugh. We're right now books came out and got great reviews. People really addicted to it. Because I also write based on sort of how I read. And I hate when people tell you something like, oh, it's a really good book. It gets really good after 100 pages. I ain't gonna hang around for 100 pages. No, that doesn't make sense. There's so many books that I've been offered. You got to hang in there. If you hang in there though, it gets good. And my philosophy is, why not start out?
That's right.
Why not grab the audience right away? Why not on page one make them go, whoa. So that's how I write. I write where the first chapter, the first page, tells you what kind of roller coaster ride you're about to get on. But, and that really works for me because I think, like me, I think there are a lot of people out there that don't want to have to struggle through 100 pages of something before it gets good.
Yeah.
So, we get a lot of comments where people are like, I couldn't put the book down, and then I started reading it. Someone posted a review just last week, and they said, I read the book 2 days. I couldn't stop. And that's the goal. And those are the things that make me feel very proud. Those are the things that, I think you can do with a story. I think, my chapters might be short, really just to the point. Not a lot of extra extraneous, stuff, but it's all about plot, it's all about character, and it's all about stakes, high stakes. addictive, very addictive series, and the characters are very original and very different. And how many of you have seen the movie Seven? One of my favorite films. This book is in that vein. It's in the vein of Seven. It's someone who is preaching a sermon through their kills. So it's not gratuitous violence. It's not, nothing is gratuitous about it. Everything has a purpose. And those are the things that I think silence, book sometimes is sort of called a combination of Seven and Silence of the Lambs, and I think if you have these kind of characters that you end up falling in love with, when we went to the movie to see Hannibal Lecter, you read the book, Silence of the Lambs, you fell in love with the character. At the end of the day, family hockey therapy is a character, but the character is so fleshed out and the character is so interesting and so engaging that we ended up cheering from at the end of the film when he says, I'm going to have a friend for lunch. So I think that you can push those things. I think that it's just really about the story. And my journey, that's what I'm trying to constantly put out. That's the thing that I'm most interested in and committed to. And that's what this series of books are about. We're going to be releasing actually 2 books this year. The third in the series, and I also have a family drama that's loosely based on my mother, so it's a completely different thing. Because that's for a lot of my career, I've been questioned why do I do certain things, and I think as an actor transitioning into directing, people doubted it. And I think a lot of times, when people can't see themselves doing something great, they can't see other people doing something. They can't see themselves doing something different. They can't see they can't see you doing something. So I think whatever that thing is for all of us, it's listening to, I can do that. I have a very successful acting career, but I never felt that was the limits of God, the gift that God gave me. And so, like sometimes you have athletes that can play multiple sports, if you don't understand, that they're so gifted that they can play football, so they can play basketball, baseball. And because we can't do it. We don't always understand that, but it's the same thing. So people, when I started directing, and it took years for people to see me as a director, not as an actor director. Because they assume it. So now, I'm getting acknowledged as he's a really good director. So just as I started doing that, I got to rock the boat some more. Now I got to introduce this whole ball thing. And so people are like, a lot of times people are like, oh my God, I didn't know he was writing. But now it's like, well, can he write? Because he's an actor and he's a director. And so that's, but never being limited by that. Understanding, like I said, I don't see them as so separate. I see them very connected. I see them connected to the gift that God gave me of telling stories. And this is an extension of telling those kinds of stories. And so this is another way of doing it. So for me, it makes perfect sense. Some other people, it feels, kind of out there. But now we're beginning, again, same transition when I turn into a director, and start taking it seriously as a director. Now people are beginning to start taking it seriously as an author. It's based on the work. It's not based on your name. It's not based on who you know. It's ultimately, you got to do the work. And, there are a lot of people out there, a lot of actors out there way more talented than me. A lot of directors out there way more talented than me. There are a lot more authors out there way more talented than me. There aren't a whole lot of people out there doing a lot of real things. So that's my niche. That's what I do. And, and I think that's what it's about. It's about finding that dream, finding that thing that you have, that voice that you have, and doing it. So that's, so that's what this is about. So I will stop talking and let you guys ask
But as you're writing, are you envisioning that? That's basically, as you're writing, sometimes you see that.
I only see that.
You only see that.
Yeah, I think, and the great thing is, the feedback that we get is that it's not just me seeing it. The readers, it's a very cinematic read. It is very visual. It is something that people are able to, when they read the scenes, they see the scenes, they feel the scenes, they smell the scenes.
Gotcha.
Because that's the kind of detail that I get because I have a very cinematic mind. I'm a director.
Right.
So
exactly.
everything for me is visual. Everything for me is, it's the musicality of things based on my training. So people get to they hear in a way that allows them to see. That's how I write. So that is definitely the goal.
That's cool.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
No, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Eriq, for the first book. Like you said, it grabs you right at the beginning. I was late several times for work and got reprimanded because of the book, but that's okay. And I'm glad you came out, so I will be late again
Right.
on the second one.
Well, thank you. Yeah, those are, when people leave comments, I had someone who told me, actually someone worked for a friend of mine, and she lives in New York, and she would read the books on her way to work, and she ended up like in another borough or something. She went way beyond her stop because she was so, her boss, who was my friend, is like, look, man, your book is making her late to work. So, but, something that's really important to me as an author, we spend a lot of time reading. I'm a slow reader, so it takes me a decent amount of time to read a book. And, when we read a book like this, you're with that book, for me, that could be a couple of weeks, a few weeks easily. The problem with particularly thrillers, when you finish them, the next day you're not really thinking about them. You knew the good guy was going to catch the bad guy, you knew this, you knew that. It doesn't really penetrate, it doesn't really stick with you. It was entertaining while you were reading it, but it doesn't resonate. It doesn't. And so books, what I'm writing, they're things that stick with you. They're things that make you contemplate. They're things that make you debate. They're things that make you, and the characters are so big, and the characters are so rich that you're thinking about the characters, and then there are all of the twists, because I also believe it's your responsibility as an author to stay ahead of your audience. And so just when the audience thinks, oh, I know where this is going, and then you take a left, and they go, whoa, I didn't see that. And then and the other thing that I do that I like that really gets people is at the end of each chapter, there's just enough food to make you want, okay, I gotta read one more. And so we hear that a lot, like I wanted, or people get mad, they're like, I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning reading that damn book, I'm morning, there I was. I thought I was in the gym for it. I didn't know, I forgot about the holy hoops. So anyway, next question. Yes.
And a lot of times I hear a lot of fictional real writers say, well, I didn't plan on doing a series, but people ask for it. Do you think it's better to focus on trying to end that thriller in a way to where they don't ask for it? Do you think maybe they're leaving something out, or do you think it's good that they're asking for the next one?
Definitely. I mean, look, the game is changing. But the model, and that model was changing, and I also believe in creating your own model. But one model that is proven is the industry loves a series. If you have a series, they're much more interested in you than a one-off. Now that's traditional publishing. Now, as a businesswoman, there's the artist, and then there's the businesswoman side. So if you can stay true to both, if you can stay true to your art by being a smart businessman, then you have the best of both worlds. I'm staying true to my vision. I'm ending it at 5 because I feel at 5 I'll then start pushing, and I'm pushing now just to have another book to make more money. And that's the problem that I have, and I read enough books to realize this writer is just kind of going through the motions because they got a deal. And I don't want that. I want every book to feel fresh. I want it to feel that it's packed with my heart and my soul. And so now, if I organically, and I don't want to be a hypocrite, but if I organically create a character that I say, you know what, I want to explore this character. And that's how I went from a trilogy to 5. Because as I started writing, when I wrote the first book, I introduced one character in a very small role. Then that role expanded in the second book. And I fell in love with him so much that I was like, and his story is so amazing that I felt he deserves his own book. So that became an addition. But that came out organically. I was going to do a trilogy. So I think you have to, so to answer your question, a series is great if you can organically do it. If you force it, I would rather have one amazing book than one mediocre series. So if I had to throw, and this is how I write, and this is really interesting. I write each book as though it's the last book. So I'm not saving, I'm throwing the kitchen sink. Now the problem with that is when I'm done, I'm like, oh man, what am I gonna do for the, you know what I mean? But you'll figure it out. That's a great problem to figure out. But I just throw everything at it and you just go, where do you go from here? And then little by little, you start going, oh, I can go, oh, and then before you know it, you're like, oh wow, I have the next book. And then you start the process over. Throw everything in that, you know, and so that's how I organically move and create a series. And that's something for you to consider. Yes, sir.
I would say I saw your commercial, and it was so graphic, and I thought it was a movie. So you're established, and you write stuff. I haven't read your books yet, but everything I done read got my attention. So you can turn it into a movie from there.
Right, absolutely.
So, do you have any problems trying to release it major motion picture where can you be true to the book, or do you have to kind of modify it or anything?
Well, I think one of the goals, one of the things that I find most appealing, how often do you hear the movie just wasn't as good as the book? The book is much better. All the time. At least 97% of the time. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
97% of the time, the movie just doesn't. It's only films like The Godfather or film, like there are a few films that really are as good as the book. And even within that, you still have to leave a lot of stuff out. But it was ultimately as good as. But 97% of the time, you hear that. The advantage of me doing what I'm doing, creating a franchise, is I feel I'm the perfect bridge to both worlds. I come from the film world. Well, now I'm in the writing world, storytelling. So who better to tell this story than me? See, the problem with most books, most authors sign their rights away, a studio grabs it, and the studio says, okay, we can throw that out, we can do this, we can do that. The author is just like, look, I got my check, I'll moan about it, I'll complain about it, but at the end of the day, I got paid $1 million for the rights. I got paid $2 million, whatever, So they don't have, the filmmaker now comes in and gives their interpretation of the work. And the author, they're interpreting the author. Well, follow this one. I'll be interpreting me. I'll be interpreting my vision. So that's why it's important. It's important for me to do these, and until we get 4 or 5 books, we're not pursuing turning it into a film yet, because what happens is you lose. If you're pursuing them, you have no power. When the books are a big hit, they pursue you. You maintain the power. So then you say, this can't change, this can't. But if you're out there saying, hey, I have a book, you want to buy it? You want to buy the rights? Okay. First of all, they're going to underbid you. They'll buy it for. Here's a perfect example of that. I know not one single woman in here read 50 Shades of Grey. Right? But y'all wouldn't do that. Y'all are good church, God-fearing women.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. So, but there were a whole bunch of other people that read this book. So, but the history of that book is very interesting. She came out with that book. She was a blogger. She was blogging. She would blog chapters of the book. No publisher was interested. So she started blogging. She started developing a pretty strong following. No one was interested. Finally, a tiny little publishing company out of Australia signed her. Around the same time, this is called being ready, being at the right place at the right time based on following your dreams. Two interesting phenomenons happened. One, there was Good Morning America did a special, and they said there's a new phenomenon sweeping America. It's called mommy porn. They put a title to it. Now, erotica has been around since the beginning of time, but once they put a title to it, the awareness popped. And in that sense, one of the books is 50 Shades of Grey. Now, the greatest phenomenon that happened was the invention of the Kindle. Because the Kindle allowed women to read this smut with no one knowing. So y'all could be at a party, y'all could be at a basketball court inside a church, reading your Kindle, and no one would be the wiser. So all of these things started happening. Now, had a savvy producer approached her a year earlier, before the book blew up, he could have gotten those rights for $75,000 to $100,000. When the book blew up, she had an auction with every major studio in Hollywood. There were bids on her book from $3 to $9 million just for the rights, because they came at her. That's the power. That's the power of releasing it at the right time. That's the power of pursuing things. That's the power of being pursued as opposed to doing the pursuit. So the goal for us is, of course, to create a franchise that is that wanted. So now you're in a much stronger position. So that's the strong position. More questions? Any more? No more?
That being pursued is really good.
Yeah, it's important, and I think, you know, the thing I really want to be known as is that I'm someone who is willing. I'm going to bet on me. I'm always going to bet on me. I'm not going to bet on. I don't need to bet on someone else. I'm always going to bet on me. I'm betting on me. I might have to be patient. I might have to wait, but I'm gonna bet. I'm betting on the success of this. I'm betting that I'll be in a position to be pursued the way I want to be pursued. So I'm in no hurry to say, hey, I've released my second book. I'm gonna release the third one. You want to get the rights? Oh, sure. Here's this amount of money. No, because I know when the books hit, the game changes, and who's in power changes. And so, like I said, if someone had gone up to her, and I'm sure she wasn't making a whole lot of money. If someone had gone up to her and said, "Hey, here's $100,000 for the rights to your book. You don't have to do anything else. Just sign so that we can go make a movie out of it." $100,000. How many people would turn that down? But now she waited. The books blew up, and now they come and they say, $3 million, $4 million. 5 million, 6 million, I said million. You know? And you're at home with your agent or in the office or restaurant or wherever you are, and you're like, okay, we got the $3 million offer from Sony, we got the $4 million from Warner Brothers, we got the $7 million from Universal. These are the conversations you're having when just a year ago nobody was paying attention to you. That's betting on yourself. And that's what I'm willing to do, and that's exactly what we're doing, and that's why we'll take the role of just building and building, and it's trusting your product, it's trusting your gift, it's trusting your blessings. Just build, trust yourself, and that's how we're approaching it. And I'm really happy. So, any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I like the way you're describing the stories and your backstories, and I think that's really motivating for a lot of people that are entrepreneurs. If you have any more, maybe one other story that you experienced, on your path, whether it be, with author or acting, I'd love to hear it.
Well, look, I think that, you can have, I think it's important, I think it's important to just sort of be in touch with your, that voice. I remember when I was thinking about leaving ER, and people were, you're crazy, they're offering you, so much money, and I was like, yeah, but I want to go, I want to own. Really, really want to own. And so I went and spoke to my pastor at the time, and I told him, I said, listen, if I'm gonna be a director, like right now I'm part-time directing, because I can only direct when I'm off of ER, which was basically for 3 months out of the year. So I was doing ER for 9 months, and so I had 3 months to fit everything in, and so it was part-time directing. So I went to my pastor and I said, this is what I'm thinking, and what do you think? And he says, Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite film. And I said, why? He says, because there's this point where this giant ball is chasing Indy, and someone told him, there's a bridge, but you won't see it. And you have to leap first, and the bridge will be there. Now, if somebody told you that, if I told you, brother, I want you to go jump off of a 1,000-foot mountain, you ain't gonna see the bridge, but then when you jump, the bridge will be there. How many people would actually do that? And it really is about that kind of faith. And so, and I'll tell you this, I think it's really important. It doesn't end up all the time like it does in the movies where it's that instant. I've been doing this for a long time. I left ER a long time ago. I jumped a long time ago. I'm seeing the bridge, but it took a long time. So it's not always as, I would love to tell you guys, yes, instantaneously. The minute you decide you have a dream, jump off the bridge, it'll be there, you'll see it. You're gonna be like, whoa! Whoa! I hate you, Eriq La Salle! Whoa! Whoa! I'm gonna kill you, I'm seriously, I was like, my pastor, I'm like, yo! God! Where is it? So, it doesn't always end up as clean and as romanticized as we make it in the movies. But if you really believe, it is there. And so, I'm doing these book events, and sometimes you go and you're like, really? Like, this is so small. Like, did I waste my time? Like, should I? But you know what? It's a part of the journey. It's a part of my journey. And the one thing that has been a major change in me over the years is just really enjoying my journey. And If my journey includes going somewhere, I did a book signing about 2 months ago. It was like 12 people. And at first I'm like, you know, but then I'm like, hey, you know what? What am I doing? I'm talking to 12 people about my books, about my vision, about my dreams. That really ain't, that's not that bad.
No.
If one person will listen to you about your dream, you know what I mean? If two, you know, so it's the perspective that you add to this stuff. And I think that that's the stuff that makes it more bearable. And trust me, I mean, that doesn't mean that you're not initially like, look, I would love for this to be standing room only. I would love for people to be fighting to get in. Y'all are cool.
Yeah.
Y'all all right. You know, y'all came to hear me talk about my dream. That's, you know, there's a whole lot of things I could be doing on a Saturday morning that's not as great as that. You know what I mean? So, you know, you take it, and I think if anything, that's what the journey teaches you. And I wasn't always mature enough and wise enough to appreciate that because I was so busy. I got to be here right now. I got to call now. And now you're like, it's the journey. You know, the interesting thing about ER was we started shooting ER in the summer of July, 20 years ago. Once we started, we were in it. And we were averaging about 14 hours a day, 5 days a week. We were just in it. So that's really all you had. By the time the weekend came, you were sleeping, you were just trying to get some family stuff done. So you were in a very insulated kind of world. And then, so from July, and then it didn't start airing until September, the end of September. So we were just going to work. We knew we liked our characters. We knew we liked the script. But we had no idea, you know, it wasn't tested yet. So they put it on, and it blows up, like, immediately. But we're still in the grind. So it wasn't until I remember I went to a premiere. Someone invited me to a premiere, and I showed up at the premiere, and the press was yelling my name. And I'm like, you know, and you're like, whoa. And from that moment on, it never changed. And so what happened was, it's a weird thing, because it felt sort of like an overnight success, because we were in this insulated thing doing the work. So we didn't, I don't know that we always enjoyed the journey, because we did this private journey, and then we were public. And I think with this part of my career, I can enjoy the journey now. It's a slow build, it is what you make it. And so you learn to enjoy the journey part. Because the destination, you know, hey, cool, great, you know, but what do? You end up looking back going, hey, remember we went to Houston for that festival, and remember I had 13 people show up to that book signing? You start talking about the journey, but you weren't really in the journey. I'm in the journey more. I'm more present in the journey, and that's something that I wish somebody had explained that to me years ago. Maybe I would have, you know what I mean? But then again, you know, we are where we are, where we're supposed to be. You know, so.
I've heard people say be present in the journey a lot. So how do you become present at that moment? Because usually at that moment, you're thinking like, if I could just get over there, if I can just get over there.
Well,
How do
you
tap into that?
stay in the journey by appreciating some of the stuff that's here. Because, you know, sometimes, okay, New Year's Eve is a perfect example. New Year's Eve, Frank Sinatra says that New Year's Eve is amateur's night out, which is really interesting. New Year's Eve, how many times have you left one party to go to a better party, only to get to the better party to realize that the party that you were at was the one?
Was the one.
So being present in the journey is being able to say, oh, I know I'm supposed to go to that big celebrity party. I know that it sounds so much more amazing than I know that. But you know what? The truth is, these people are funny. These greens are good. That sweet potato pie is the business, you know what I mean? And I'm gonna sit here, I gotta come, whatever. I'm gonna, like, it's learning to make that call in the moment. Because sometimes you're so busy going, oh, no, you know what? you know, Jay-Z and Beyonce are having a party and I got invited. I'm gonna go there, so I'm just gonna have a little bit of this food. And you get there, the line is 5, right? So you're gonna be in line for 4 hours. You didn't eat because you knew they were gonna have. By the time you get in there, they ain't really even serving no food. And, you know, but you built it up in your mind what the destination is. And God was like, yo, I gave it to you. You said it wasn't good enough because you were so busy trying to get here. And isn't there a Dr. Seuss character that says, I'm here, but I want to be there. What's over there? What's over there? What's over there? And so that means you're never satisfied. And I'm happy with this stage of my life where I don't want to stay here. Of course, I want to continue to grow, but I want to enjoy this while I'm here. So if I leave now, if I happen to enjoy this and go to that party, and it's not all that, I'm like, you know what? That's cool, because the first one I went to at Aunt Mabel's house, you know, Aunt Mabel ain't supposed to be able to compete with Jay-Z and Beyonce's party, but her party was the joint. You know what I mean? And so sometimes we think, oh, by the time I make it, everything's going to be great. Not necessarily. You know what I mean? You've given up so much, so I think you've missed the greater moments. And so that to me, being present is just being able to say, hey, this is where I am. Let me appreciate it for what it is, because there's something that I'm supposed to learn in this moment. But if I'm so busy and so preoccupied that I don't, then I've missed it, and then that's sort of like a double tragedy. You can't control this. You can really only control the moment. It's up to you to look at it as a positive or a negative. That you have a choice of. You can say, okay, you know what, this was a wash. There was supposed to be 700 people here in my mind. This was supposed, you know what I mean? This was supposed to be, this is supposed to be I can, or I can just go, this was cool. That woman in the wheelchair, that's a moment I'll always remember. That's, you know what I mean? And we're so busy looking past that. That's the moment. That's God saying something to you. And even you got to strain your ears to hear her. But you go, I'll never forget that moment. Jay-Z and Beyonce's party they won't let her in. And she's the one that touched me. So that's how you look at that kind of stuff. But you make a choice. You make the choice to say, that's value, or hurry up, let me get out of here so I can go. You make that choice. I'm making the choice that was a blessing, and this is cool. I'm making that choice, and that's how you stay present.
Great answer. Great answer.
Brilliant answer.
How do you go about, if you're a published author, how do you go about even getting the attention of someone to turn your stuff into film, or get the attention of the director or producer? What do they look for? I mean, how do they go about trying to seek out new material to possibly produce or direct? I mean, do you have a sense of what would catch their eye?
What would catch their eye consistently is a New York Times bestseller. I mean, that's the business. My business is, Hollywood is a very interesting place. Interesting, not always in a great way, because people don't know what their opinions are. It's an industry really of followers. And let me give you an example. On Monday, as a producer and a director, and I've written screenplays, the funny thing is, 2 years before ER, I did another medical show for Dick Wolf. It was called The Human Factor. And it was on Thursday night at 10 o'clock on CBS. And Dick Wolf always jokes, when I see him now, to this day, he always jokes. He's like, a medical show, 10 o'clock on a Thursday night, who thought it would have worked? You know, because ours bombed.
It bombed.
And I thought that show was good. And I thought ER was really good. You don't know. And there are plenty of good shows that don't make it.
Right.
And even when they make it, they don't make it on the success. No one predicted. No one. As a matter of fact, if you remember when ER first came on, there was another show called Chicago Hope.
Yeah. On the
Okay, Chicago Hope was pegged to be the breakout hit.
Right.
As a matter of fact, we were the other medical show. So all the magazines leading up to that were like Chicago Hope, Chicago. It was David E. Kelly. He was a more famous producer than John Wells. Chicago Hope is going to, there's this other medical show that's going to, literally they were saying, they were writing us off. They were like, that show's going to get creamed from Chicago Hope. There's only room for one. And we coexisted for a little bit, but we were always yeah. So, but no, you know, you're arrogant and wrong to say, yes, I knew it was going to happen, because I've done good shows that didn't make it, and I've seen bad shows that have become huge. You never know.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Alrighty, any more questions? Are we wrapping up? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our books. What are we going to do? Tell me what we're doing, ladies.
Okay.
This is where I turn into a follower.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for coming out today. What we're gonna do is immediately following, Eric's gonna have a signing over in the other room.